first step I would recommend for anyone who's trying to think about leading big change across the company is to lean in even harder to active listening. And so many of us do traditional survey work across our organization. We were very intentional to ask a set of questions to our employee base with regards to what do they believe they need to drive peak performance in the organization. And so two stats. One, 85% of our workforce came back and said, we need you to really think about formalizing, allowing flexibility and choice. And what's really important there, if you're going to do the active listening, you've got to be prepared to respond. So when you get a stat like 85% of your workforce saying, okay, I need this for my ability to be my best, you got to be ready and willing to respond. The second thing I would tell you is you got to commit to the big change, but be comfortable really living in an agile mindset. And so for us, we launched several, what I'd call, using the agile terminology, minimal viable products, right? So we went out and looked around, what is the leadership offerings we need to provide? Let's go out and try, some new and different things with our people leaders, because you got to coach and lead differently. If you're going to actually lean into the hybrid model, you got to rethink your traditional processes. So for us, we sunsetted the traditional performance management process and went to a more quarterly coaching cadence. Again, it complemented a deeper connection between the employee and manager. We then started to measure that, right? So every people leader in our organization got individual scores around how they're leading with their team. And so their employees provided them direct, almost kind of 360 feedback. And again, why that's important is because if you're going to sustain something as big as, a different way of working, you've got to make sure that you've got active listening tools in place. You got to have the courage to try some things in more of a test and learn mentality. And then you've got to have some good measurement criteria, right? So what does those scores look like, from turnover to employee engagement to business outcomes? If you're going to go all in and radically rethink the way in which you work, which is a huge change initiative, you've got to really take a step back and say, how are you going to help your leaders lead differently? Because the same tools and resources that worked a few years ago, that kind of traditional way of leading and managing, has to be different with this way of working. And so for us, what we said is now a must-have is flipping the concept of managing a team to coaching a team, right? And so first, you have to commit to it at the top of the house, that you have to say that coaching is important for all of us to be able to deliver for the business and kind of hit our peak performance. So as an ELT, we role model having coaches and openly talking about the benefits of coaches. We've also redefined some of our leadership trainings to go deeper on the importance of coaching and individualized coaching, as well as team effectiveness coaching. And it is different models and different skills that really are critical in someone's ability to do it. And so for us, you have to embed the language and the commitment in coaching at all levels. And your leadership development programs have to have coaching as a critical anchor in the ability for a leader to lead the way you need them to across the organization. I can give you some examples. The first example is we took all the top 300. So our top 300 leaders in the company, and this year put them all through what we call impact sessions. So how can you drive the impact that we need across the organization, and coaching being at the hallmark of that? We did some simulations with them so they could actually feel what it's like to be at different levels in the organization. So, how does it feel to receive that message as a frontline associate, all the way to a mid-level manager, to the executive role that many of them hold, and how a message is received versus what you think the impact's going to be when you're communicating. And again, one of the key elements of all of our coaching models is active listening. And I keep putting active in front of it because sometimes we will go through the the process of listening, but are we actively listening? Are we asking for clarification? Are we going back and having that follow-up conversation, which is one of the key leadership lessons that one of our partners, West Point, we partner with West Point on some of our coaching and leadership trainings. We had some of their retired colonels in the military come back and talk about the importance of the next day of coaching. So you think you delivered great coaching in the moment, but are you going back and actually asking your employees to play back what they heard to ensure clarity of goals, clarity of the mission at hand? And so we're really excited around not only the commitment to coaching, but the investment and infrastructure we're putting in place to ensure that everyone at all levels in the organization can develop this really critical skill. One of the other things we did is sunsetted the traditional performance management process because it was counter to this real-time coaching concept that we wanted everyone to commit to. And so it felt static and a little bit stale to wait till the end of the year to do a formal look back on someone's performance. We also learned through a lot of that active listening that I talked about that employees, when you're anchored to an employee rating, you tend to stop listening in the conversation as soon as the communication happens on what rating you got that year. And so we sunsetted the annual performance review process as well as the rating and went to a more quarterly conversation where the conversation is anchored around coaching and goals. So the first meeting all of our employees are having right now at the beginning of the year, and this is employee-led, not top-down driven, is that goal-setting conversation because that's critical to effective coaching. Clarity of mission, knowing exactly what you're being held accountable to. So we now have a dedicated meeting at the beginning of the year that is just focused on goals. And then from that meeting, we have a quarterly cadence where the manager and the employee will meet to review, hey, has anything changed or any of the goals and priorities changing in the first quarter versus what we thought at the beginning of the year. And it helps the employee and manager, build a stronger relationship, which we are seeing through our Great Places to Work results. The more frequent a manager connects with their direct report, they see a significant increase in engagement, which we believe has a direct correlation to performance. And so for us, those quarterly performance conversations are really important. And our most recent survey results told us 90% of our employees believe they have clearer goals with their manager and are getting more candid and direct feedback from their managers. And we're trying to reframe candor as well. And you brought this up earlier in the conversation. One of our values is caring. We believe that to truly care for one another, you've got to be candid. And candid does not mean that you have to drive conflict into the conversation. It's just around transparency and ensuring that employees understand what they're being held accountable to and that the manager is doing active listening on what are the barriers that need to be removed to be able to achieve those goals.